We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do us well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button. If you like our content, share the video with your family and friends. If you want to support this channel through a donation, just hit the $, make a comment, and I will get to you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome into the studio that sits in the middle of Heisman City on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. PATC community, do not be afraid to be a legend. With your comments in the chat room, with your phone calls later in the show. It is crazy. It is crazy, and it's not going to let up. It's not going to let up. It's like, and I said this before, it's like riding a wild tiger. We got a stack show today. We're going to have a stack show tomorrow. There's things percolating. There's things bubbling up to the surface. Everybody should be afraid. Everybody should be afraid. It is, well. So, man, what aren't we going to talk about? Tuesday, April 23rd, we have, we're going to go through the Ross Dellinger article. Yes, I know other people have done so, but we're going to do it, with PATC style, reflection, giving a peek around the corner. During the college football playoff, the negotiations, we said here at Peek Around the Corner that the breakaway wasn't going to happen. Not at this time. The chances were, I said, like 1%. It did not happen. It did not happen. But in the future, yes, we've said yes. From the very beginning of this YouTube channel, we deemed 2026 the great gold rush. That people were going to be elbowing themselves in position to try to get as much of that money as possible when the expanded playoffs would happen. We were very honest here at Peek Around the Corner. Like always, we said the SEC and the Big Ten were going to grab more of what everyone would consider their share. They're going to grab more of it. They're going to put their chips in the middle of the table, and they were going to grab more. We said that on day one, and it happened. The future is... It is the great unknown. We're going to do the best we can to provide you a peek around the corner for the next 5 to 6 years when this all gets played out. The winnowing process is going to continue. Consolidation is going to continue. 2026 was not... Okay, let's take a step back. And we'll get into the article a little bit later. Everyone's making a big thing about how Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey said in the Ross Dellinger article, we were ready to go. We were gone. We were going to break away. We had other options. Well, first of all, of course they're going to say that. Of course they are, because they want to continue using the leverage that they could break away. They're not gonna say, after the college football playoff, all this has been settled, they're not gonna say, nah, we were never leaving. Nah, we're not going away. We were never gonna go in 2026. Of course they're gonna say what they're saying, because they want to continue to use that leverage. But here is the important part of it all. And I'm going to hurt a lot of people's feelings on this from both sides, all sides. Number one, their leverage is going to grow because it is going to be more realistic. For the SEC and the Big Ten to take Notre Dame with them and break away and have their own world, it's going to become more realistic in the future. At least highly probable. 2026, we did not buy it at Peek Around the Corner because of a lot of court cases, a lot of things going on. But have they had talks? I mean, yes. In the future, their leverage is going to increase unless something big happens that I don't see happening around the corner right now. Unless there's some economic fallout, some whatever, world war, whatever happened, I don't know, a meteor hits or something, I don't know. Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State and USC gets in a big fight within the Big Ten, or Alabama and Georgia gets in a big fight with the SEC and they break off. Something incredible happens. As the future goes on here, as we have that look in 27 and 28, as we get closer to 2031, their leverage, the Big Ten and the SEC leverage, will grow. It will become more legitimate. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to break away in 2031. Doesn't mean they're going to break away in 2030. I'm just saying their threat to break away increases. The leverage increases. They had leverage now. They put all the chips in the table. They threatened. They had, as Ross Dillinger, we're going to go through the article, they had separate meetings, whatever. But it just wasn't going to happen for 2026. As we reported to you all continually, day after day, week after week. But in the future, the threat only grows. Now, everybody, every conference, every university, every athletic director, every group of money purchase, the big mega boosters for every fan base out there, everyone is looking for higher ground in the years ahead. They've been doing it for years, and they're going to continue to do it. We know what Memphis is doing, right? We know what Memphis is doing. NIL, FedEx, stadium renovation. There's stadium renovations going on everywhere. Not just in the power conferences, but in the G5 conferences. Everybody is looking for the highest ground possible because the lawsuits are coming, the payoffs are coming, collective bargaining is coming, employment is coming, and people are going to start really using their leverage. The winnowing process will continue. And where it all ends up, I don't know. Of course I don't. We only can give you the peek around the corner. The most accurate peek around the corner I think there is in the business. We'll let our track record speak for itself. But where this ends up, I don't know. Look, certain schools in the SEC, the bottom half, when it comes to value, have they done right by themselves? Have they protected themselves as much as possible? The bottom half of the Big Ten in value, which would include the University of Minnesota, my beloved Golden Gophers, have they done themselves? Have they protected themselves? Did they get some stuff in the Big Ten Constitution? We're going to find out. Has the Big 12 done enough? Are they still trying to get more value for the conference? Are they waiting for the ACC collapse? Have they had third-party talks? I tell you what, Yormark has pulled the rabbit out of the hat. I'm going to be blunt, they defeated the Pac-12. They're going to try to defeat the ACC. And then you got the G5 conferences. Among them, we're going to see what Oregon State and Washington State do. That is why we opened up the P2 and Friends matinee drama. We are completely convinced here at Peek Around the Corner. And you know, I will come on here and I will take the L. If it doesn't go the way we are believing it's going to go. We believe that, we know that Oregon State and Washington State are going to do everything possible to create the biggest, highest brand value conference they can possibly get done. They're not automatically going to bring in all the Mountain West schools to make a 14-team Mountain West. This is not what is happening in this day and age of college football, even among the G5. The G5 are looking for more and more. They did not get as much money as they thought they were going to get when it came to the great gold rush of 2026. They might have their own G5 postseason tournament. They're not going to give up that access. As long as they can get it, they're not going to give up that access to the 12-team, to the 14-team playoff. But they might double down or double up, or however you want to say it, and have their own postseason to get a little bit more money, a little bit more exposure. Everybody is trying to reach the highest ground possible. And there's only a handful of schools out there, only a handful of athletic departments out there that don't have to worry about how high a ground they are. They're just looking at format. They're looking at rules. They want unlimited coaching staffs. The Ohio State and Alabama, the Michigan, the Georgia. They're trying to create an environment that gives their value the most opportunity to achieve at the highest level of college football. They want their power, their advantages to mean something. In other words, they don't want just to build another waterfall in one of their facilities. They want to be able to use their money. They want to be able to use their power. And they've started doing that, right? The SEC and the Big Ten are having an advisory group together. Not because Rutgers and Mississippi State are going to rub elbows. It's because of Ohio State and Alabama. Making sure they create the environment that they can use their power to the best for their advantage. Cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger, cloak and dagger. It is, and it's going to continue for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And then you got Florida State and Florida State and Clemson, and a few other ACC schools. My goodness, if you can't see why Florida State and Clemson is in the court now, I don't know, I can't help you then. Really, I can't. They have so little risk and everything to gain by going to the courts, by going to Mecklenburg County, by going to Leon County, by going to Pickens County. Nothing to lose, everything to gain, because they know the winnowing process will continue. So we're going to cover Ross Dellinger's article, probably take it a little bit different angle than most people out there are taking it. We're going to start our monologue talking about the state of Florida. The Attorney General stepping in. The state of Florida's sovereign immunity. They're trying to push their way into this. They're trying to create leverage, I believe. We're going to be going through an article by War Chant. Breaking news today, the state of Florida, the Attorney General herself trying to gather up 6 other attorney generals in the states that make up the ACC, trying to get them involved. I don't know how, I'm not sure how successful she's going to be. Then we got Dylan Edwards, great running back, incredible speed, Colorado Buffalo. He's in the transfer portal. He just went in the transfer portal. Deion Sanders just sang his praise 4 days ago in an April 18th press conference during the spring practices in Colorado. Dylan Edwards is in the portal. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. You know where Dylan Edwards would be great at? I think he should take a strong look at Nebraska. If Dylan Edwards goes to Nebraska, because I think they need a running back. I think they need an RB1. Anyways, so we got that. And then we've got a whole bunch of other stuff going on. Look, I'm going to show you guys something. You remember, first of all, I want to thank, hold on. I want to thank Big Dog Daddy. Thank you so much. Rebel Leader is already at the top of the mountain. Thank you for your incredible generosity to our channel once again, Mr. Husky, Big Dog Daddy. Thank you so very much. And everybody thanking me in the chat for my birthday. Thank you so very much. I will get to all of you and say thank you to all of you in a moment for showing up early in our early afternoon, Tuesday, April 23rd. I just want to show you something here. So, Clemson filed a suit against the ACC March 19th in Pickens County. Then the ACC, of course, filed a suit in Mecklenburg County. Yesterday, April 22nd, I'll show you, stipulation of service and deadlines was filed. What this basically means is the parties further stipulate and agree that Clemson University shall have through and including May 6, 2024, that's only 13 days away, within which to file and serve its responsive pleading or motion. The parties further stipulate and agree that Clemson University shall have through and including May 7th, within which to file and serve a brief in opposition to Atlantic Coast Conference's motion to steal and memorandum in support, respectively, submitted James P. Cooney. So what does that all mean? Keep your head on a swivel. For Clemson to file something in Mecklenburg County before or on May 7th, May 6th, and May 7th. I just wanted to basically what that stipulation of service and deadline stipulation of service does. It finally opens the door for Clemson to file back in Mecklenburg County. So the door is open for Clemson. Okay, just wanted to show you that. There's so much stuff going on. I'm telling you, there's so much stuff going on. It is absolutely crazy. Coy, thank you so much for becoming a Cloak and Dagger member for the 3rd month. Holy smokes. Coy, thank you for your generosity. You've been very generous to this channel. Thank you so much. You are hereby officially knighted cloak and dagger once again. Thank you so very much. Before we get into everything we got to get into, let me say thank you for showing up early in our April 23rd show. Nick Boardman, Carrie Gold Nose, Secret Agent, my prof, Greg Abia Jammin, Doug Scruggs, D5 Terps. Happy birthday, Greg. Thank you, Nick. I do appreciate it. I am 56 years old. I started today my 57th trip around the sun. Michael Monk is in the house. Expedition Greg, Gophers, Badgers, Cornhuskers. Holy smokes. Nick Kelso is in the house. Jimmy is here. AMAC, Tyler Brown, be afraid, Greg. Be very afraid. West Virginia spring game this weekend. Thank you, Chief Fan. Thanks for letting me know. Very interesting. West Virginia and Nebraska spring games. Maybe I'll try to do something here. Corey Belt is in the house. Randy Taylor. It's a stack show. It's a stack show. In fact, I'm kind of hoping nothing else breaks while we're doing this live show. Yeah, I'm hoping nothing else breaks. We shall see. There's things percolating. I will say that. Cornelius Green is in the house. Praise the Lord, Greg. You're absolutely correct. Chief Fan, Laura Weiss, the Red Raider is in the house. I appreciate it. Appreciate it very much. Jeff Westfall is in the house. Hurry up and wait. Stephen McNeely is here. Are you Muggs? Lewis Papp. Haven't seen Lewis Papp in a while. Little Brown Jug staying in Michigan. We shall see. We shall see. We're going to shut down Orgy. Alex Orgy. We're going to shut him down. And probably still lose 35-3. But you know what? We'll worry about that later. Right now, let me pretend, Mr. Papp. Let me pretend that the Golden Gophers have got a shot. Got a shot. Don Scruggs. I tell you what, Mr. Scruggs, there is an article out. Now I don't have access to it. I've heard it's a pretty good article. It came out on Popular Mechanics. So if anybody in the chat room has a subscription to Popular Mechanics, they came out in an article today talking about how there is, I think it's pictures of a U.S. Unidentified submersive object. And it is blowing up the internet, or blowing up people who are interested in that stuff. And there is a certain person in the Navy at a very high level that said this is legit and it's a legit threat to our Navy. And so if anybody has that article, anybody who can copy and paste it, send it to me. I would appreciate it. Skaven, yes, is in the house. Grateful Trojan, lunch PAC in an In-N-Out burger. Not a bad day. I've never had an In-N-Out burger. So someday I'm going to have to get out there for a Gopher game and have an In-N-Out burger. Rob Ellen is in the house. Charlie Atwood, Penn State is here. KS Bear F Fan is here. Thomas, thank you, appreciate it. Cameron B, Rock Chalk J Hawk is in the house. Florida Canes, Nick Kelso, Eric Phipps, Tough Tony, David Kreitzer, Marcus Williams, thank you, sir. I do appreciate it. Rock and Rant is in the house. starting his next lap around the sun with a trip to space. Christopher Shannon is here. LFG is here. Daniel is here. Raider Vision is here. Okay, let's get going. We got a lot to cover. Thank you for everybody for showing up. Early afternoon live Tuesday, April 23rd. Okay. Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody asks other states for support in Florida State ACC lawsuit, Irish scuffle, war chant. We provide a link in the description. You can read the whole thing. 2 weeks after North Carolina judge ruled the ACC's lawsuit against Florida State can move forward in Mecklenburg County Court, Moody sent a letter to the top legal officers in 6 states, asking them to stand with Florida State in arguing the Seminoles should be protected from out-of-state legal action by sovereign immunity. The letter was dated April 17, 2 weeks after Judge Bledsoe made the ruling that the case will go on in Mecklenburg County. The letter was dated April 17, 24 and addressed to California Attorney General, Georgia Attorney General, Kentucky Attorney General, Pennsylvania Attorney General, South Carolina Attorney General, and Virginia Attorney General. Now, I have tried to connect the dots on why she selected. I don't know. I don't really have a good answer on why it was these 6 particular attorney generals. She did not do Massachusetts. Did she do everybody else but Massachusetts? Is that what happened here? Pretty much that's the only dot I can connect on it. Anyways, it is because of the potential breadth and impact of the trial court's claimed waiver of sovereign immunity that I write to each of you, Moody wrote in a 2-page letter, which was obtained by War Chant late Monday, last night. The potential impact of the ACC lawsuit could subject Florida State to a loss of more than $500 million. Any waiver of sovereign immunity, especially one such a magnitude of a state entity, should require an especially clear waiver of its sovereign immunity. FSU and ACC are suing each other, right, over the massive exit fees, grant of rights. Clemson is doing the same thing in Carolina. If ACC prevails, those schools could be required to pay well over $500 million if they want to leave the conference and join a different league. In their motion to dismiss the ACC's lawsuit, which was filed in late December, Florida state attorneys argued sovereign immunity protects the university from being sued in another state. Judge Lewis A. Bledsoe denied that motion. He denied it. Because Florida State had been active in extensive commercial activity in the state of North Carolina for years, Bledsoe wrote the university has waived its right to be protected by sovereign immunity. The ACC's activities, specifically the sponsorship of athletic events and the marketing of media rights for those events, are commercial in nature. The court further concludes that as a member of the ACC, Florida State's conference-related activities in the state are also commercial rather than governmental. Florida State is in the process of appealing that decision to the state Supreme Court of North Carolina. Meanwhile, Moody, the Attorney General of the state of Florida, letter to the 6 attorneys general appear to be penned with 3 goals in mind. 3 of them in mind. Number 1, alerting those states, each of which have the universities in the ACC, that their schools could be subject to similar lawsuits in the future. Number 2, encouraging those legal officers to contact their ACC member schools and make them aware of the perils of the conference actions. Number 3, asking those states to consider joining the state of Florida in taking action to help Florida State's cause. I don't think number 3 is going to happen. Justin Lucas, thank you. It's actually really simple why. Justin Lucas in the chat. These attorney generals have public universities. New York, Massachusetts, Indiana, Texas in the ACC just have private schools. So we're talking about SMU, we're talking about Boston College, we're talking about Syracuse, and I guess we're talking about Notre Dame. Thank you, Justin Lucas. That is the dots that connect. I also understand the conference realignment has become a contentious and highly charged, Moody wrote. Each of our states has some university that will likely be significantly affected from the shakeout of the latest round of consolidation. And I recognize and appreciate that the fans of each school are extremely passionate, but positions such as the waiver of sovereign immunity position being advanced by the ACC are detrimental to all of our states. If the history of college football realignment has taught us anything at this point, it is that there will be some future realignment down the road. In other words, Moody is saying realignment never sleeps. Rule number 1 at peek around the corner. The universities that have ratified such an expansive view of the waiver of sovereign immunity in the ACC lawsuit may find that the sword that they now wield will be turned on them. Moody concluded her message with a call to action for the 6 attorney general. 6 of them. If you see the same risk as I do in the ACC lawsuit, I ask that you or your staff engage with the universities, Moody wrote. Florida State is appealing the trial court decision in the ACC lawsuit. Florida is considering taking action in that appeal. If you are interested in becoming involved in those efforts, please let me or my Chief Deputy, John Gard, know. This is not the first time Moody has sought to get involved in the Florida State's ongoing battle with the ACC. In early January, she filed a request asking the conference to release the several documents related to the dispute, including the ESPN's television contract with the ACC and the grant of rights, which is believed to tie each school's media rights to the conference through 2036. Remember something. Just a little bit ago. Well, not just a little bit ago. It was yesterday. According to the Florida State Attorney Rush, I'm going to get back to that here. According to yesterday's Florida State's attorney, Mr. Rush, Moody, the Attorney General of the state of Florida, requested, I think Rush used the word demanded yesterday, that the conference would release the ESPN television contract with the television contract where she would get a copy of it, the 168 whatever pages. And according to Florida State's attorney, she hasn't gotten a page from the ACC. And this is the letter that she wrote to the other attorney generals. I have attached this letter in order that my office recently became aware of an ACC lawsuit referred to above. I would direct each of your attention to pages 32 through 42 of that decision. We're talking about the sovereignty issue, where a trial court in the state of North Carolina concluded that Florida State University waived its sovereign immunity to be sued in the state of North Carolina by belonging to the Atlantic Coast Conference, the ACC. All of you have public universities that are members of the ACC. You each have other higher education institutions that belong to similar unincorporated sports associations. Indeed, there are countless similar organizations at every level of our states and local governments to which state and local officers are involved. It is because of the potential breadth and impact of the trial court's claimed waiver of sovereign immunity that are right to each of you. She goes on to talk about Florida State's loss of $500 million. She cites some other court cases. And that's pretty much her letter. For all I know, the ACC or its lawyers may not have even explained the future implications of their act or the ramifications that could flow to those institutions. On and on and on. It's the same. We've already covered basically all of it. I get it. The state of Florida, the Attorney General, again, trying to have an impact on this, trying to potentially gain leverage for Florida State, trying to get the 168-page ACC ESPN agreement, arguing over sovereign immunity, the expansive sovereign immunity, ACC, the judge agrees with ACC, Judge Bledsoe, saying that Florida State waived its sovereign immunity because it's been a part of the ACC for so long. ACC's been marketing, whatever. Okay, so how successful is all this going to be? Probably not very successful. I mean, maybe the South Carolina Attorney General does something, acts on this. I did have somebody tell me, I'm not sure, I did not confirm it before I went live, but I think the Attorney General of South Carolina is not a Clemson grad. I believe it's a South Carolina grad. Someone checking that in the PATC. Anyway, so I again, it's something to note. The Attorney General putting her office into this situation for the second time. The first time didn't really have any impact. The ACC ESPN did not respond to her. They haven't given her the ACC ESPN agreement. I look at that list of attorney generals, and the only one I think that would act, this is just my speculation, is the South Carolina Attorney General. That's just my speculation. Let me know where your speculation is on that, your thoughts. Laura Wellborn, happy birthday, Greg. I'm a Florida State fan and appreciate all your hard work in putting together a great show. Thank you so much, Laura. I do appreciate your generosity. I do appreciate you watching our show. This is a national college football show. Yes, it's the studios up here in North Minnesota, but it's a national show. I do appreciate you coming on in. Thank you for your generosity, helping us keep the lights on, and thank you for wishing me a happy birthday. It's been since this morning I've been working on this show. So it has not been a day off on my birthday. I can guarantee you that. But thank you, Laura, so very much for your incredible generosity. Ryan Willie, Moody is considering a run for the governor of Florida. Thank you, Evil Badger, Ryan Willie, for your continued generosity to this channel. Thank you so very much. I don't know what the internal politics are. Florida and everything. Moody, Attorney General. That probably true. Thank you so much. She's not going to lose any votes in North Florida. She might lose some votes in Gainesville, Florida with this, but Anyways, thank you, Ryan. I do appreciate it. I do appreciate it. Now, let's get to Ross Dellinger. This is an article from yesterday. I have not had a chance to get to it on our shows because we were covering the case in Leon County. I've heard people's takes on it. Mine is going to be a little bit different. But I think we get to the same point. The future is unknown. We know what has happened here. It's been going on for a while, guys. Oklahoma and Texas, this is why they call it the SEC. This is why USC called the Big Ten. This is why Yormark got in front of the Pac-12. He peeked around the corner. This is the straw that is stirring the drink. Everyone's trying to get to the highest ground possible. And this is why Florida State, this is why Clemson is in the court. How the new college football playoff format came to be and what it means for the sport's future. In January 2022, inside a convention hall with the JW Marriott Hotel in downtown Indianapolis, the sport's most powerful leaders gathered to vote on expanding the college football playoff. 7 months of quibbling over an expansion format that had finally led to them to this pivotal moment. On the morning of Georgia's eventual win over Alabama in the national championship game, they met in an effort to finalize a 12-team postseason. Instead, disagreements continue as three conferences, the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Pac-12 members of the now infamous alliance, pushed back against the proposal. At some point, as discussions grew heated, then Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby, frustrated and exhausted of the indecision, slowly packed his bag and began to rise from the table. The meeting isn't over, someone told him. It is for me, he shot back. What happened that day still lingers across college athletics. Last month, more than 2 years later, commissioners agreed on a new playoff structure featuring an uneven revenue distribution model that is likely to have long-term financial impacts on the industry. The revenue model, a combined 58%, goes to the SEC and the Big Ten, presents an adverse budgetary impacts for the other 99 programs in the FBS and grows the gap between them and the sport's two giants. But all this could have been avoided if a decision were made in 2022. Our inability to conclude a deal 2+ years ago had a pretty significant impact on where the financials ended up, said MAC Commissioner John Steinbrecher. And I want to take this moment to give my condolences, my prayers to John Steinbrecher and his family. He lost his wife due to cancer, and I just want to say I'm very sorry to Mr. John Steinbrecher. He's been the MAC commissioner for years, so I just want to give a prayer out to him and his family and his loved ones. A leading voice in college sports who often chairs the CFP commissioner meetings. What was on the table for 2022 was simply different. The delay opened the door for continuing changes to where we ended up. After the Pac-12's collapse, the swelling of other leagues and increasing pressures of athlete revenue sharing, the sport's two juggernaut conferences negotiated a one-sided deal, in part by using a lingering belief that they would abandon all others to form their own postseason. Again, the breakaway. Would the SEC have really taken its proverbial ball and left the CFP? Absolutely, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey told Yahoo Sports. When we ended that set of meetings on January 2022 without a decision, I was clear. If you're going to walk away from this opportunity, we're going to reevaluate our position on format, revenue sharing, and governance. People called me after the latest deal and said, why did you take a hard line? Why did you put us in this position? I said, you guys walked away from the deal. Yahoo Sports spoke to more than 24 stakeholders across the industry, some directly involved in the negotiations, to learn more about the CFP's new structure came together and nearly fell apart. Its long-term impacts on college sports. The new deal. On Tuesday, today, college football playoff leaders, the 10 FBS commissioners, and Notre Dame's athletic director gather in Dallas for their annual two-day spring summit. It is their first meeting since they agreed on the new television deal, the playoff television deal, revenue distribution model and format, and the details of the new deal are as follows. 6-year extension with ESPN, $1.3 billion annually, Big Ten, SEC, 29% of the $1.3 billion, each of them. ACC gets 17.1%. Big 12, 14.7%. Notre Dame, Group of 5. The format is not finalized. Certain protections were there, including automatic spot for the champion of the 4 power conferences and the highest ranked Group of 5 team. A 12 or 14 team field, and qualification guarantees for independents like Notre Dame, related to their place in the rankings. For 24 and 25, the format is set as 5+7. The new revenue distribution model shook the college athletic landscape for its disparities. In the previous revenue structure, we've gone over this before. 80%, about 20%. In the new deal, the gaps in the figures are striking, especially among the 4 power conferences. The SEC and the Big Ten will get about $23 million. Big Ten, 21. SEC, 23. Those in the ACC and the Big 12 will earn anywhere from 12 to 14 million. Notre Dame will earn 12.5 annually, plus a $6 million bonus if it qualifies for the playoffs. An 18.5 million figure. So Notre Dame, if they make the playoffs just one time in the next 6 years, Notre Dame is going to make more money in the playoffs than the Clemson Tigers, than the Florida State Seminoles. G5 programs will see a $300,000 to $500,000 increase to about $1.8 million each. The rich are getting richer. Bob Thompson, the former Fox television executive, and the poor are getting poorer, added Bowlesby. The negotiations were heated. Over the course of the 6-year playoff contract, an SEC school will earn about $140 million in distribution. A school in the ACC will earn about $80 million. That is $60 million in the next 6 year difference. And remember, the SEC schools are going to be making double than the ACC schools do in conference payouts. More than double. It's going to be more than double. Eventually. The revenue structure makes the situation more precarious in the ACC, where Florida State and Clemson have already started the process of seeking legal mechanism to exit the conference, citing an expected 20 to 30 million annual financial gap. But with the playoff numbers, we're now talking about 40 million every year, said Florida State Athletic Director Michael Alford. And then, what is it going to look like after those 6 years? That's what Florida State and Clemson are looking at. Not just these 6 years, but what does it look like after that. If Clemson and Florida State need to take a loss in revenue, they want to take the loss in revenue, but get on the higher ground for the next 6 years so they don't have to get buried 6 years from now when it comes to resources, money, revenue, exposure. The elimination of the CFP performance-based initiatives makes these gaps almost impossible for individual programs to close. Under the current CFP contract, teams that qualified and advanced earn bonuses of $4 to $6 million per round. Those will be eliminated starting with the new deal in 2026. So while the ACC internally created this unequal revenue sharing based somewhat on performance, like Florida State can make a little bit more money than Duke if they do better, if they get to the playoffs, do better, whatever. But there is no revenue sharing based upon performance in the playoffs. So basically the ACC unequal revenue sharing, all of it is pretty moot at this point. Pretty moot. In an interview with Yahoo Sports, ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips described negotiations as incredibly difficult and challenging, and at times even heated. I don't think anybody loved all of it, but everybody tried to massage what they have felt was important for their conference. Tried to message what they felt was important for their conference. You bargain and push as hard as you can. The CFP revenue distribution model was largely based on conference historic success. And we've gone over that before, over and over before. The previous 10 years, the SEC would have been responsible for roughly 40% of the participants. A figure that Sankey used during an intense 6-week negotiating window. In an interview, Sankey suggested that the league, the SEC, requested more than 29% of the revenue. But they ended up with 29%. We wanted to make sure we captured in this deal what we have contributed, added Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti. Petitti focused at first on format, proposing the CFP expanded beyond 12 teams and remove as much subjectivity as possible in the selection process by adding multiple automatic qualifiers. Remember, we reported that here, Peek Around the Corner. We said they were playing bad cop, bad cop. Petitti was focusing on more automatic qualifiers for the Big Ten, the SEC, and Sankey was focusing on the revenue portion. They both, the Big Ten and the SEC, took the extremes of the two big positions and they squeezed everybody. They were playing bad cop, bad cop. One took one position, the other took the other position. Now, the revenue distribution model, that's been done for the next 6 years, except for there's a look-in, and we're going to get to that. But the format hasn't been solved yet. And you know what? Who's going to decide the format eventually? It's going to be the Big Ten and the SEC because they have the voting rights. If those two conferences agree, they can push forward to whatever format, not beyond the guardrails, not beyond what is protected, but the number of schools and automatic qualifiers, SEC and the Big Ten are going to make that decision because they have the voting, enough votes to get it done. With conferences still in a state of flux, Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark led a movement for a look-in provision after the 2027 playoff. The provision can be exercised by a power league. Now, we just learned that the Pac-12, the Pac-2, is no longer a power league. We just learned that. I think that officially happens, August 1st, July 1st, whatever. So now we're down to 4 power leagues. And the provision can be exercised by one of those 4 power leagues and would trigger a reevaluation of the revenue structure based on CFP participation and performance over the next 4 years. So 24, 25, 26, 27. Those 4 years. Those 4 years, if you are a Big 12 fan, if you are an ACC, if you are a fan of a team in the Big 12, if you are a fan of a team in the ACC, you want your Big 12 and your ACC representation in the playoffs to rock and roll. You want them to advance, and if they can, win the whole thing. Because it's going to help you in your conference. I don't care if it's your rival. If you're a Miami Hurricane and the Seminoles are in the playoffs, you want Florida State to win the whole thing. If you are a Kansas Jayhawk and the Kansas State Wildcats are in the playoffs, you want Kansas State to advance, and win the whole thing. 24, 25, 26, 27. Those 4 years, whatever happens in the playoffs, baby, it's going to mean so much. It's going to mean a whole hell of a lot. It only adds more drama to all of this. The provision also can be triggered by material realignment. I can't sit here and say that I'm thrilled with the revenue model, but it's the best deal we could get, Yormark said. I'm bullish on the Big 12. I'm betting on the future, baby. With the investment we are making in football, we will be in a better position when that look-in presents itself. Negotiations mostly involved the Power Conference commissioners and new Notre Dame athletic director Pete Bavacqua. The 5 held group calls multiple times a day for roughly 3 weeks. We were kind of Switzerland if Switzerland had a really big army, Bavacqua said about Notre Dame. Bavacqua did not have to fight to keep Notre Dame's place within CFP governance. However, he did acknowledge the PATC money shot number 1 of the article. Bavacqua, however, did acknowledge conversations among a small subsection of leagues, the SEC, Big Ten, and Notre Dame, walking away from the current structure. You say walk away, but walk away into what? What would the landscape look if we couldn't have negotiated a deal? That was such a great unknown. And that was one of the reasons why it just wasn't going to happen in 2026. The breakaway wasn't going to happen in 2026. But it can happen a few years from now, ladies and gentlemen. It could. You know, they've already had some talks between these 3. Right? And they'll probably have more talks later on. And Yormark is going to battle for the Big 12 representation to make sure that doesn't happen. Possibly the ACC. The next 4 years are so crucial. During the interview with Yahoo Sports, Petiti emphasized that it was a real possibility. I think we felt confident that we were willing, if we could craft a deal, that we'd look at other options. We would have started over. Without seeing better alignment, we weren't going to sign. We were 100% confident and made it clear that we were only going to do a deal that worked for us. So, as we've been saying over 2 years on this channel, the great gold rush at the Big Ten and the SEC, we're going to push all the chips that they've been gathering in the middle of the table. And they were going to get more of the great 2026 gold rush. And they did. My warning to everybody is that now that they've got more time, now after these court cases are done, after these schools have paid the big amount that they're gonna owe in these court cases, House versus NCAA, then the economics of consolidation is going to be even greater. And they're going to use their leverage to push forward, and they're going to threaten to walk away, to break away 5, 6, 7 years from now. That's the great danger. The mounting pressures. SEC announced they're creating an advisory board February 2nd. Next year, the 34 members of the SEC and the Big Ten will encompass 61 of the 88 AP football national champions. Their schools will earn 70 plus million annually in total distribution, at least 20 million more than the next conference media rights deals. Litigation is the most pressing of these issues. We've got litigation costs, compensation for athletes, the threat of private equity. The NCAA and the power conferences have been engrossed in the settlement discussions. Schools will likely owe more than $1 billion in back pay. While settlement talks mostly remain private, many administrators believe any agreement comes with an annual revenue share figure of $15 to $20 million per school. You will hear SEC and the Big Ten folks say, we're going to pay most of the House lawsuit. And they are, said John David Wicker, the athletic director of San Diego State. But per school in the Big Ten, they're going to receive more money than our conference as a whole. The group of five situation in any new model is cloudy. For now, the highest ranked group of five champion earns a spot into the field. But Sean Frazier, the athletic director of Northern Illinois, he wants to have a 4-team group of five national championship tournament hosted by 3 bowl games, 2 semifinals, and a championship. We have to think outside the box. The next 5 years, we might not have access to the playoff or increased dollars. What about sharing revenue with athletes? Most group of five football programs do not generate a profit. Many G5 athletic departments are subsidized by university and student fees. There's not been a level of communication about what this is going to look like for those of us left behind, the athletic director of North Texas. You have 2 conferences out here trying to forge a path, what's best for them. And there's not been a discussion about what does that look like for everybody else. In the ACC and the Big 12, the gaps in playoff revenue structure sent some administrators scrambling. They had budgeted for more in future revenues. They thought the great gold rush of 2026 was going to get them more than what the results were after the negotiations. What's going to happen is if one of those Big 12 schools have a good year, the coach is going to be hired away by the SEC of the Big 10. They're going to feel the pain that the G5 has been feeling. Andy Schwartz, a California-based economic specializing in sports economics. TCU athletic director Donati has been outspoken publicly about the new playoff structure. We shouldn't be surprised that the conferences in schools are going into this act solely in their best interest of their conference and respective institutions. We've demonstrated for years that this is our model. We don't make decisions in the interest of the greater good. Not happy. Not happy. And then a group of college athletic administrators backed by private equity developed a plan for a long-discussed Super League by rearranging the conferences for geographical purposes and consolidating broadcast rights for higher revenues. Plenty of the respected voices in college and university sphere, even those in the SEC and the Big Ten footprint, supported further examination of the plan and encouraged commissioners to delay any CFP agreement. North Carolina Athletic Director Bubba Cunningham was part of the Super League group. But there are hurdles. If you go down this route, it requires you collective bargain. Well, we're going to have collective bargaining anyways, no matter what the structure is. And that's what he said. They may be where we end up anyway. We're going to go there regardless. In the end, the obstacles were too great. Chief among them, the implosion of the long-standing conference affiliations and the abrupt end of league television contracts. And here is the PATC money shot number 2. And I think the Monty Show should read this a couple times. The biggest thing was ESPN and Fox, said one person with knowledge of the talks. They were not going to rip up cost certainty to redo the media landscape. And according to the Monty Show, ESPN and Fox had already agreed to do the Super League. And nah, that's not what was going on. What could have been... I'm going to skip that part because it's pretty much the same. They're talking about the past with Kevin Warren. Either way, the ramifications of the new CFP deal are deep as two conferences distance themselves from the rest with unequal revenue sharing. Basically, that's the column. That's the article. The reality is, 2024, 2025, 2026, 2027, and then that looking after the 2027 playoffs. That is the inflection point. What happens during that look-in is just going to be what do you call that? It's just going to spring you forward into what happens in 2030, 2031 when this playoff contract is done. The next 4 years, and then that look-in is going to be I'm telling you, if you are the Big 12 and the ACC, you want the next 4 years to be your best 4 years your conference has ever had. When it comes to the performance of your football programs. So that is just added on to the pressures of everything, the drama of everything. Rock and Rant, thank you so much for your incredible generosity. Holy smokes. You are hereby Cloak and Dagger Knighted. Gifting five memberships to the community. Thank you, Rock and Rant, Mr. Hurricane. Unbelievable. Thank you so very much. And to the 5 who were gifted those memberships, please say thank you to Mr. Rock and Rant, Matthew Carlson. Happy birthday, go blue. The Jug is staying in Ann Arbor. Bring on Florida State and friends, Matthew Carlson. Thank you for the happy birthday. Thank you for your incredible generosity. Once again, But Mr. Matthew Carlson, the jug is being taken away. Remember, that game is in Minnesota, right? No. I have no idea. No, I think that game's in Michigan. Whatever. We're taking it. It don't matter. We're taking it. I don't know how yet. I'll figure it out later. Mr. Carlson. I'm going to figure it out later. But we're taking the jug home, baby. We're taking the jug home, and we're going to put it right up next to the Floyd of Rosedale. Thank you so much for your super chat. I appreciate it. Got to leave for other matters. Thank you, Michael Monk, for your super chat, for your generosity. Thank you so very much. So we've covered the state of Florida. The Attorney General, trying to get some Attorney Generals of 6 other states involved and try to get them to discuss and talk about and go after the ACC when it comes to the sovereign immunity law. And we went through the Ross Dellinger article about as quick as I possibly could have. I know there's been a lot of discussion on it already. I did not have the time yesterday to do it. It's an impactful article. I think it's a warning shot. I think whatever the 2026, the Big Ten and the SEC had leverage, and they used every bit of it. But it is my contention that a few more years down the road, they're going to have more leverage. And I know people don't want to hear it. The Big Ten and the SEC people got mad at me because I said, nope, breakaway's not happening in 2026. The timing wasn't right. But they've got an advisory group. They've had a subsection meetings with Notre Dame. If things don't go the way they want them to go, now in their breakaway, would they take another power conference? Possibly. Could there be a 3? In that article, and I did not cover it, Schwartz, the economic professor guy, he thought maybe there would be 3 power leagues. 2 power leagues of 24 teams each. Another power league of 20 teams each. That could be. And then they would separate from everybody else. But I'm just saying, the economic forces might change. But right now, it's still about consolidation. The winnowing process continues. So if you're a school, if you're the bottom, like I said at the start of the show, if you're the bottom half of the SEC when it comes to value, the bottom half of the Big Ten when it comes to value, have you done enough to protect yourself? Have you? Because who knows what's going to happen here. And I say to the Big 12, you've done a lot. You've jumped over the Pac-12. You consolidated. You took the best brands that you could get in the Pac-12. You're looking at the ACC implosion. Can you get in with the Big Ten, the SEC, if they decide to break away? You've done a lot. You probably need to do more. The ACC, those schools, because the ACC is going to implode at some point. It's just the amount of the check that Florida State and Clemson and a few other schools are going to write. The ACC is going to implode. At some point, it might be a month from now, it might be 6 years from now, but schools are getting out. And what's left behind in the ACC, you got to protect yourself. You got to get yourself in the best position as possible. It might not be possible, but you got to do everything. And that might be taking the big check now instead of taking a little check later. You might want to tell Mr. Phillips that. Carrie Gold Nose, unbelievable super chat. Thank you so very much for your incredible generosity to this channel. Holy smokes, your incredible generosity when it comes to gift memberships. Thank you, Carrie Gold Nose, Mr. Seminole. We got a lot of Mr. and Mrs. Seminoles in the chat. Thank you, Carrie. I do appreciate it. Wow. Thank you so very much. As always, Miami to the Big 12. Okay. Even when Kerry Gold-Nose is being generous, very, very generous, he's got to give an elbow. He's got to give a shot. He's got to give a shot to his fellow Hurricanes. Holy smokes. Kerry Gold-Nose, thank you. Very kind of you, sir. Thank you so very much. Ray McGeorge, how's it going? Thank you for your super chat. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for coming on in, Mr. Ray McGeorge. I love that last name, McGeorge. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it. Wow, incredible generosity. Replica, happy birthday, Greg. Keep crushing it. Thank you for your super chat, Replica. You've been very kind to us over the last year. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you very much. We're going to keep crushing it. We're kind of a little bit overwhelmed because we're going to open up the phone lines. You can talk about anything you want. We've covered a lot. We haven't really gone over the portal too much. And I'm going to say this. Dylan Edwards, man. I don't know what happened here. I know they're bringing in the guy from Ohio State who's really good. I get it. But Dylan Edwards, was he afraid he wasn't going to get the rock? Is there a bigger NIL deal out there? This guy's fast. This guy was good last year. He was good. I know he got a little nicked up. But he is good. He is good catching the ball out of the backfield. Where is he going to end up? Where is Mr. Dylan Edwards going to end up? I think Nebraska would be a great spot for him. Even maybe Iowa. Giving Iowa some speed. But I'm not a big... I don't know. I keep looking at that Nebraska backfield. Emmett Johnson, good guy. He's from Minnesota. But he's not RB1. He's not RB1. Put Dylan Edwards in back of Dylan Raiola. Dylan Edwards, Dylan Raiola. I don't know. Maybe I am fascinating to see where Dylan Edwards goes. Selena Rodriguez is Kansas State. Put him back there behind Avery Johnson. Ooh. Replica says Colorado has a true freshman, Mika Welch. Kerry Gold-Nose says Florida State would put him in the flat. Yeah, this kid can play, man. And again, I know Deion Sanders likes to say, the guys we lost, we're fine with losing them. They're not fine with losing Dylan Edwards. I know they're bringing in the kid from Ohio State, who's only done wonderful things at Ohio State. But you don't want to lose Dylan Edwards. 4 days ago, April 18th, Deion Sanders said in a press conference, he was praising Dylan Edwards. So this was not part of the plan. Now I see Immaculate is in the house. Mr. Hawkeye. And Deacon Hill, the quarterback from last year, is in the portal. Not a loss for Iowa, but Deacon Hill, maybe he could get into the MAC conference. Kid wants to play. I don't blame him. But the Deacon Hill era in Iowa City is over. So Brendan Sullivan, the quarterback of Northwestern, who can't stay on the field, but he's talented. I know a couple years ago there was a big buzz about Sullivan, the quarterback. He's in the portal. I was not expecting that. In fact, I thought he was going to be quarterback number 1 for Northwestern. I don't know what's going on. There has been some surprises. People going in the portal lately. Barrow, the great defensive tackle from Michigan State, he's in the portal today. Michigan State loses another defensive player in the portal. Joe Rossi's their new defensive coordinator. He came from Minnesota. He's a great defensive coordinator. He's losing guys left and right. A lot of things are going on. We try to cover it all here at Peek Around the Corner. We are a little overwhelmed. And once again, before we go to your phone calls, couple things. One is in Mecklenburg County, filed yesterday, a stipulation of service. This opens the door for Clemson to file in Mecklenburg County against the ACC. The parties further stipulate and agree that Clemson University shall have through and including May 6, 2024, within which to file and serve its responsive pleading or motion. The parties further stipulate and agree that the Clemson University shall have through and including May 7th, 2024, within which to file and serve a brief in opposition to the Atlantic Coast Conference motion to seal and memorandum in support. So, keep your head on a swivel. North Carolina Business Court, Mecklenburg County, the Atlantic Coast Conference v. Clemson University. Clemson is probably, I would expect, to be dropping something before or on May 6th and May 7th. And we are also, before we get to phone calls, just letting you know, we got our head on a swivel here at Peek Around the Corner. We're still expecting Clemson to file an amended complaint. The electronic file went out April 17th. It's Tuesday, April 23rd. So we're keeping our head on a swivel when it comes to Pickens County, Mecklenburg County, and everything in between. Happy birthday, Greg. Monty got this defensive when I told him that the Super League isn't happening. He says, whatever ESPN tells him to say, well, I don't know what the future is. I can tell you that. We give you the best Peek Around the Corner as possible. There's too many variables. Now, people are using Super League in all sorts of ways, right? We use it when we talking about Super League. We're talking about a breakaway of a couple conferences or three conferences in where they shut down playoff access for everybody else. I know the Monty Show used the Super League as there being 70 teams and geographic divisions, and he said there'd be no more conferences. And Monty said that ESPN and Fox was all for it. They've been having discussions. And he said it over and over and over again. He doubled down, and it's completely false, which is fine. He got it wrong. He probably should come out and take the L, but he won't. He probably won't. Hopefully he does. I don't care either way, but a lot of people saying a lot of things that just are, we don't know what's going to happen, but we know what did happen. We know what Fox, ESPN are not interested in some 70-team Super League. Not right now. Not when they have these big-time contracts signed, sealed, and delivered with the Big Ten and the SEC. Thank you for the generosity, Mr. Evil Badger, Ryan, Willie. Okay, let's open up the phone lines. The phone lines are open. I've been talking the whole time. Holy smokes. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. Talk about your team. Talk about what your team looks like after the spring game or the upcoming spring game. Nebraska and West Virginia play their spring football game this Saturday. Dylan Raiola, the true freshman quarterback, all reports said he was absolutely spectacular in their last open scrimmage.
Call from
Stutter Stroke.
I did not catch the name.
Stutter Stroke.
Stutter, you have the floor. Go ahead, let it rip.
Yes, I'm gonna be real quick here because I'm on break, Greg. But I sent you the article you wanted. It's behind the paywall there about the unidentified submersibles.
Popular Mechanics. You sent that to me.
Yes.
Where? DM?
DM. Yeah. Yes.
Hold on. Hold on. Oh, this is beautiful. Absolutely gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Stutter, can I call you Stutter then?
That's fine, yeah.
Stutter, thank you so very much. Absolutely wonderful. The world-changing underwater UFO caught on video is a legit threat, says ex-Navy officer. I'm telling you, 99% of you in the chat who love to give me a bad time, who throw elbows at me, saying my cheese have slipped off my cracker. Well, one of these days, you're going to find out my cheese might not have slipped off my cracker. Thank you so much, Stutter. I do appreciate it.
All right, thanks. That's all I have, Greg.
You got it. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Holy smokes. Stutter comes in and does me... I've gotten a lot of wonderful birthday gifts. A lot of incredible donations. Stutter comes in with a very special gift up in a bowl. Holy smokes. David Kreitzer. My goodness. My goodness. Another gifted membership. Hold on, Mr. Kreitzer. Hold on.
call from
BJ.
BJ is calling me to tell me that my cheese has slipped off my cracker. But before you do that, BJ, I just need a little bit of time here. Is that okay?
Shoot, man, I'm here waiting.
Got it. Mr. Kreitzer, thank you so much for your gifted membership. 5 gifted memberships. You incredible generosity to myself and to the PATC community. There's something wrong with my mouse. There we go. Thank you, Mr. Kreitzer. You are hereby officially knighted cloak and dagger once again. Thank you so very much. And Selena Rodriguez, RT, Cougar Tracks, Kevin White, Edward Douglas Ministries, you are all hereby knighted cloak and dagger. Congratulations. And you all can go to our YouTube channel. Go check out the latest episodes, membership episodes, Cloak and Dagger, where we drop a little bit of cloak, a little bit of dagger before we talk about it in our live shows. We drop them a couple times a week. Thank you so much for incredible generosity, David Kreitzer, and to everybody else. I do appreciate it. BJ, the floor is yours.
Once again, thank you, Greg, for having me on. 2 things I want to just talk about very kind of clear and concisely. I think we talked about yesterday where, at the end of the day, when it came to the Florida State ACC lawsuits, it is my understanding that I just didn't see a pathway that the state of Florida would allow $500 million of taxpayer money to go to some North Carolina nonprofit, right?
Yep. I remember that.
And not to my surprise, the Florida AG put out a letter this morning basically applying pressure, political pressure.
Yep.
Because it was, I think, and I think in the article I read, she emailed other AGs.
Yeah, we went through that. We went through the whole article, and she's trying to bring on 56 other attorney generals that represents public universities in the ACC.
Exactly, and so I think I read somewhere in there where she was like, we're going to try this approach first, but we may take legal action against the ACC over the sovereign immunity, right? And I think it's very important for people to realize what sovereign immunity is and how important it is. And I know this is a football show, and we look at it through a football lens, but through a political lens and through a business lens, it is a very important piece of protection for state entities. And so, like I mentioned yesterday, I just don't see it happening. Something similar came down with Governor DeSantis and ESPN, where he took over ownership of Disney, of the land around Disney. Folks in Florida take that sovereign immunity very seriously, and I just don't see the ACC stopping that, right? For one. And I do think it was strategic that the AG placed this letter the day after what happened in court yesterday. I think the letter was ready to go, just like the ACC lawsuit against Florida State was in somebody's desk, ready to be filed. Mm-hmm. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think it's a very legitimate and a very real threat. And I think it's going to have some teeth, not in a legal sense, but in a political sense.
Yeah, in a leverage sense. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, so, they're appealing that in the North Carolina Supreme Court. So I think that's kind of like what we let off our show with. It's a political leverage point type of play the Attorney General's trying to make.
And mind you, I don't view it as a legal play yet, but I think it's a political play. And I know we look at things, we're looking at this from a legal standpoint, but there's a political piece. Just like what's happening in North Carolina, the transfer of power from the Board of Trustees to the Board of Governors, that was a political power play. And those two schools, I think, are positioning themselves for the future and not just the current. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah. The second piece that I want to talk about was the Super League, or the article that I think Dellinger had. I think you went over earlier.
Yeah.
I tend to come back when I take a step back and I look at it from a bigger, wider lens. The Super League was never going to happen, for one, because if Fox and ESPN wanted Big 12 properties or Pac-12 properties, they got them.
Yeah.
And so I don't see the ESPN or Fox not all of a sudden having an appetite to feed more mouths or to give more money. I think you mentioned time and time again how tight the TV market is, the media market is so I don't see it being super tight. Not all of a sudden we're going to add 30 more teams. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I just don't see that appetite happening anytime in the next 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah. If the ACC implodes, there's going to be an appetite. Now
but not for 30 teams. For maybe 5 or 6 teams.
Yep.
Right.
I agree. I agree. Again, the next 4 years, I mean, there's already enough drama, right? There's already enough at stake when it comes to getting into the playoffs, performing well, coaches, fan bases, great exposure for the university. But we're literally talking, BJ, PATC community. We're literally talking about your destination when it comes to what never sleeps, realignment. If your conference, if the Big 12, for example, just does an unbelievable job for the next 4 years, gets teams in the playoffs, they advance, they win the thing, that look-in thing is going to be a celebration for the Big 12 conference and for every single institution in that conference. But if the Big 12 goes belly up the next 4 years, there is no Big 12 teams that win any playoff games like it was before TCU won. Then when they walk into that look-in clause after the 2027, it's going to be like a morgue. And then let's take a look at the Big 10. What if they don't do well at all for the next 4 years? What if they lose the edge? What if the 18-team conference? What if the West Coast teams can't win here in the Midwest and the East Coast? What if Michigan State and Ohio State take a slip back for whatever reason? Ryan Day doesn't get it done. Jim Harbaugh is no longer there. Sharon is a big flop. The Big Ten flops for the next 4 years. They might lose that edge. They might lose that percentage. They might slip back from the SEC. There's so much drama now, BJ, when it comes to the next 4 years. We already have it, but now we've got even more on top of it. It's unbelievable.
Here's the thing. I have an answer to your question. So, and here's the facade that Sankey and the folks in charge have fooled a lot of people. So they mentioned how the CFP payouts were due to past historical performances, right?
Yeah.
That's what they said. If that was indeed the case, the ACC will be the second highest paid conference, right? The ACC over the last 20 years has the second most championships football-wise.
Yeah, yes.
In
Clemson, yes, yep.
Clemson, right?
Yeah.
And even appearances, right? So that's one. I think it was just it's not true. I think at the end of the day, viewership pushed it. I think if Ohio State and the Big 12, Big 10, performs over the last 20 years, over the last 10 years, as they did the next 10 years, they only have to win 2 chips, right?
Mm-hmm.
They only, I think Ohio State won 2 of them, and that's it. So, but viewership, they own the viewership.
Yeah.
Like the viewership lane they kill. And so if they don't win championships, so looking at the argument will kind of go from performance on the field to viewership. So even if the Big 12 were to win a championship in the next 3 years, 4 years, right?
Yeah.
How does that compare to the ACC winning 2 chips over the last 10 years? So I don't think it's going to be more than 17%. And that's what the ACC is getting now. So I think it is almost impossible for the Big 12 to move up in a significant way.
But
I think at the end of the day,
but they don't have to. They don't have to outrun the bear. They just have to outrun the other people that are trying to run away from the bear. In other words, the Big 12 just has to. In reality, they're just focusing on performing better than the ACC these next 4 years. And the ACC is thinking, we want to perform better than the Big 12 in these next 4 years. You're right. There's other variables on why the Big 10 and the SEC make so much money. And they're not going to fall. They're not going to collapse in the next 4 years. But I was just bringing that up as an example.
Yeah.
But there is, the
thing.
Big 12 has an opportunity to flip the table on the ACC when it comes to, with the ACC imploding and plus with the next 4 years. We're at a clean slate now. We can't, whatever happened in the past, now it's 24, 25, 26, 27. What happens in those 4 years is going to possibly alter those percentages. Go ahead, sir.
I agree with you. I agree with you. For one, I think the next 4 is critical for everybody not named the SEC and the Big 10. And as it pertains to those 2 conferences, the most important thing, I think the only way the Big 12 or the ACC change their outlook is viewership. Because at the end of the day, the TVs kind of run things, and they're purely numbers. TV media, ESPN, Fox, they could care less about state boundaries. They care about viewership, right? So I know from a sports fan, we want to see states represented, but I don't think ESPN care about states. They care about viewership, numbers, markets. TV deals are based off viewership and markets, not by making sure this state has a piece or that state has a piece, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's just my opinion.
Yep.
I can, but now on top of that, I also think that if the Big 12 and the ACC viewership goes up, then it will change the numbers. I think they need to eat into some of the Big 10 and the SEC numbers if they can. If not, I think it's status quo. And lastly, I'll say when it comes to the Big 12 and the ACC competing for slot number 3, I think the Big 12 and the ACC rather, I think it's clear that the ACC is 3 to me. On the field, I think the ACC over the last 10 years, compared to the new Big 12, I think the ACC is better. Now, if we remove Clemson and North Carolina, then that's Clemson and Florida State, rather. That's a different argument. But as it sits today, a conference with Florida State and Clemson is clearly better than a conference without Texas and Oklahoma, right? And that's just my opinion. Now, I think when you look forward to the future, the only thing that bothers me about the ACC and the Big 12 competing is now the 2 bigger leagues are getting $30 million more a year to put into their infrastructure, to add more coaches, to offer more money with NIL. If you include the new law that Virginia passed about schools directly being able to pay kids NIL money. If that law gets passed through the rest of the country, I find it extremely hard for teams to now compete with other organizations that are doubling their salary or doubling their budget. Yeah. Right. And so that's the part. If you can't compete when things are fairly equal, trying to compete when they have way more money, it is walking uphill with ankle weights on. It'll be very hard. I hope that Big 12 succeeds and the ACC performs well, but looking at it realistically, I don't expect it to happen. But
Yep, I got it. Beautiful call, BJ.
But let me get out of here. Thank you as always. I appreciate it.
You got it. Thank you, BJ. Great call. Call again, sir. Thank you, Bill G, for the super chat. I do appreciate it so very much. Happy birthday to the Gopher Godfather. Thank you, Bill G, for your continued generosity to the show. Thank you so very much. You're very kind.
Call from
Tristan Fibes.
Tristan, thanks for calling. Can you hold on 1 second?
Certainly.
Looks like we got some really good news for Kansas State. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. Now, I'm just getting this from Sam McEwen, Nebraska beat writer, but I'm going to post it here. I would assume Dylan Edwards is heading from Colorado to Kansas State, but he's one heck of a talent. So people in the chat believe Kansas State is the chalk for Dylan Edwards. I'm telling you, man, Kansas State, if you get Dylan Edwards, buckle up, brace for impact. He's one hell of a back. Tristan, the floor is yours. Thanks for your patience. Thanks for calling.
Thanks, Greg. Hey, listen, I'm sorry I didn't catch the beginning of the show.
Nope, no problem.
There was some kind of a tweet, I think, today involving the Florida AG.
Yes, sir.
And you covered that earlier, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that individual is using the term sovereign immunity in the tweet, correct?
I don't know what the tweet was, but the argument was from Moody, the Attorney General, sovereign immunity, that the ACC's it's that the take on it is so expansive that the states lose their sovereign immunity just because they've been part of the ACC. Moody does not agree with that. But go on.
Okay, yeah. So that's what I wanted to confirm that I had heard that story correctly.
Yeah.
So I called in probably about a year ago, towards the beginning of your run here when you started this channel. And I mentioned to you that sovereign immunity might come into play.
Yeah, you did. You know what? I kind of have a memory of that.
Yeah, and I think that Greg, I just want to say I think that's the fallback position for FSU, and it probably would be the fallback position for Clemson too if it comes to it.
Yeah, and let me say this: March 31st. I also remember this: March 31st, 2023. We did a live show. And one of the three things that the Florida State Money Perch was saying was the sovereign immunity argument. But it wasn't going to be what they're going to lead with. It wasn't something that they were going to lead with their chin with. That was going to be something that they were going to hold back. So we did a live show on that as well. But go ahead, sir.
Okay, very good. Yeah. So. I don't know what the ACC's position on this is. I mean, we know that we've got these lawsuits happening, but if they're serious about getting a settlement done to avoid discovery, they're just going to have to bite the bullet and let the grant of right number go. Like, there's just no way that someone's going to pay hundreds of millions of dollars. I even think $200 million is going to be excessive. I think they're going to have to settle somewhere right below the exit fee, like around $100 million, if they can reach a settlement. Because I think the grant of rights the sovereign immunity argument will rear its ugly head, and they're going to say, "Look, that's too much. We're not going to pay that."
Well, while the Mecklenburg County, the Mecklenburg Court Judge Bledsoe already ruled against the sovereign immunity argument. And now it's being appealed to the North Carolina Supreme Court. I don't know how it's going to play after that.
Yeah.
I take it a little bit differently. I don't see how the ACC can take. To me, and I could be way off on this, okay? But to me, Jim Phillips's take on this has to be the survival of the schools that are not going to get into the SEC and the Big Ten. He knows the future. He's been part of the Big Ten. He was an athletic director from Northwestern. He knows what's happening. He knows consolidation. He has to have a certain number that makes it so it's not equitable. He has to have a number that enough ACC schools will pay it, and those payments will go to the other ACC schools where they can take a hit on their media money because their media value is going to go down for the next 6 or 7 years. I think $100 million is too low. I think he's going to have to, you know what I'm saying? $100 million for how many ACC schools? Like 4 of them, 6 of them if they leave. I think it's got to be around $200 million. That's why I think it's between 200 and 240. A lot of people, most people disagree with me, but that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, everyone disagrees with me, so that's fine. But let me say this, okay? Here's the risk. If you don't come to settlement, then what it's going to end up being, in my opinion, is that they withhold revenue, and that's it. They're going to say, we're out, we're done arguing this. You don't have the ability to enforce on the state of Florida paying any extra money. You can withhold the revenue. They have the right to do that, and they're probably going to do it. But they're not going to get someone in the state of Florida to cut a check for $200 million or whatever the grant of rights is. A settlement, they'll go ahead and cut the check.
Yeah.
It has to be a number that they're willing to pay. And I'm saying, in my opinion, I think that the exit fee is ridiculous in the eyes of Florida State. I mean, it's 3.5 years of operating budget. That's outlandish. I mean, exit fees have never been. The ACC is the only one that has that kind of an exit fee in the history of the P5.
But they did all sign that.
I know, but
Yeah.
Greg, look, when you have a contract, there's an old adage that whatever number you put in the contract, that's just the beginning point for negotiations when someone wants to break it.
And historically, it's been 60% of whatever that exit fee's been. So then we're looking at not 130 to 140. Now we're looking at about 80, 85 million. Would that be 80, $85 million payout? And then I think they're going to have to pay, about 3 years, 3 or 2 years, depending on how this works out, of some sort of grant of rights, payment, whatever, throw in another 120 million, and I think that's how you get your 200 million. But
okay, so you've got some numbers tied to the specific parts of the contract. That makes sense. I understand what you're saying.
But you know what? I'm going to probably be $200 million off either way. But that's my best shot. 200 to 240 million. But I will say this. That number starts to get lower as we go on here. I mean, to me, that $200 to $240 million is something, I think that's the sweet spot of if there's a settlement so where Florida State can be playing in a different conference as no later than 2026, maybe even 2025. But if we get into next year, then I think Florida State's going to be saying, yeah, that number is going to be dropping here. So the ACC, the earlier they settle, I think the more ACC can get.
Okay.
But
yeah, and I would agree with you on that. The more this drags on, the lower that number is going to be.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is I do think that if the ACC withholds the Florida State revenue, they're probably going to do the same thing with Clemson. Would you agree with that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, definitely if the schools say we're out of here.
Clemson has not been as vocal about expressing the desire to leave as Florida State has. Their lawsuit, if I understand, was geared towards getting a resolution on what exactly it would take if they wanted to leave.
Well, they actually said if we leave, we get our rights with us. That's their main argument.
Right, that was part of their argument, yeah. But they're haggling over the grant of rights.
They're haggling over the media rights
That goes
agreement.
To the grant of rights. That goes straight to the grant of rights.
They're haggling over the media rights agreement.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're saying that the rights go with them, which means that there is no grant of rights payout.
Yeah.
That they would have to pay, right? So, so I think this is going to be very interesting. I think I heard someone speculating that this could end up in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
That would be quite the interesting story if it went that way.
Yes, and that would take quite a while though to get there. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to check in and make sure that you were discussing sovereign immunity and remind your listening audience that I brought it up first.
Got it. Beautiful. Yes, you did. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Greg. Keep up
Tristan,
the good work.
Thank you, Tristan.
All right. Bye-bye.
I do remember that. I do remember Tristan calling and talking about that. Yes. And we did a show March 31st based upon Florida State Money Perch.
Call from
Immaculate, the floor is yours. What's going on, sir?
Well, I'm just going to start with the obligatory. Deacon Hill is a really nice person. And I'm sure if you ever met him in real life, I'd be like, oh my God, this guy deserves so much better.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't think that because being a nice guy doesn't get you positioned behind the center, taking snaps. And it's really nice to see that, sorry to say it, that not only are they not looking to start him, but they let him know, like, you're probably not playing. You should probably take your 2 years and, go to a MAC school or something.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I think a max school would be probably the best avenue for him.
Yeah, unless he wants to try and be a punter. I mean, he looks like a punter.
Yeah.
Maybe he could stick around and try and be a punter. But I don't know. It makes me wonder about our quarterback situation. I know they're going pretty heavy trying to get in some receivers. So I think maybe they thought they had a quarterback coming. You know, hadn't all the rumors, and maybe they looked at what was there and said, "Oh, I don't know." And so they're going pretty heavy after some receivers right now.
Yeah.
But
supposedly, I'm sorry to break in. Supposedly, Ross Dellinger. This should not be a surprise to Immaculate or anybody else, but Ross Dellinger said on the Paul Feinbaum show today that Clemson and Florida State are not going to be in the ACC, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, or 5 years. They're not going to be in the ACC. Now, Brett McMurphy said they're not going to be in the ACC 2 to 3 years from now. They're just not going to be in there anymore. So, more confirmation. They're going to pay whatever needs. They're going to, it's all about trying to get that number as low as possible, but they're going to pay to get out of there, to get out of the ACC. I'm sorry, Immaculate. I just wanted to
no, you're good.
Bring that in. Yes, sir.
I'm used to it. I'm used to the breaking news. It's all good.
Sorry, man. Sorry.
It brings me back to what was said at the case yesterday, though, when the lawyer decided to, on the record, let us all know that settlement talks have been happening.
Yes.
You caught that part, and then the ACC lawyer was kind of fumbling with what to say in response to that.
Yes. Yep.
Didn't want to confirm it for sure.
Yeah.
Kind of tells you that's how it's felt, though. Like that this has all been part of the continued settlement talk, where they couldn't come to an agreement, so then they went forward with all this stuff, trying to almost like an arm wrestling match.
Yeah.
Trying to maneuver for control to get the other person to finally give up. Kind of what it felt like, and I think they confirmed that. So even though my list yesterday is definitely more positive for the ACC than for FSU, that little bit of knowledge coming out might actually be a bigger deal than any of us realize for right now.
Yeah. Rob Allen, Mr. Clemson Tiger in the chat room says, and I remember Peter Collins saying this. Florida State's Board of Trustees Chair Peter Collins said that Florida State would pay $150 million to get out of the ACC. I remember him saying that. And I think they're probably willing to go a little bit higher than that for certainty to get out. I still think the number is between 200 and 240. Immaculate, I don't think I've ever asked you, what would you put the number at? Where do you think this is going to end up? What's the sweet spot right now for both sides to be able to say, yeah, okay, we'll do it?
I kind of have two diverging paths on that. One is if it's only going to be a small number of schools, then it's going to be a high price because there's going to be more schools dividing that up.
Yeah.
If this is going to end up being a situation where the price is going to be set, a few schools go, people are going to start collecting on it, but then that's going to be used by other schools as a way for them to try and get out later, as in when the ACC is lower value, maybe after renegotiation. They might find it in their best interest to get everyone out all at once. And in that case, some of the numbers that have been thrown around, including by you, I think they're just too high. Like, you're not, if you really truly want to get everyone out, that's going to continue to cause you headaches going forward. The 150, maybe. I kind of aimed at the 100 if it was like a larger number of schools. Mm-hmm. Say if it was 10, that's $1 billion to be split up over time between, so far right now, it looks like 8 schools. I mean, I do the math on that. That's a nice little chunk of change right there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that number right there, that 150, I think that's reasonable. And I think when you're looking at the amount of money out there, at least if there's 6 going to the Big Ten and the SEC, I think that's a reasonable number. If there's some other schools that they, for whatever reason, would want to maybe go over to the Big 12. I think that's too high. So I don't know. It just depends upon the end goal. It depends upon who they want to stay, who they want to go, how quickly do they want to finish this off so it doesn't continue. I mean, remember, these are people involved with this. This is a major headache. This is a headache for us. Imagine if you're in the middle of this trying to get this figured out. And once you get it figured out, these schools, you don't want to do it again.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. People are saying different numbers, and I think it's all reasonable. At this point in time, I would go anywhere from 100 to 250 million.
Yeah.
And I think that that's all reasonable. I think that the rest of CFP is going to start putting some pressure on this.
Now, can I ask you guys time for a question?
Yeah, I did have one more thing.
Okay, go ahead.
Quick,
go ahead, and
the
then
chat,
I got a question
I
for
can
you. Go
answer
ahead.
that.
Yeah.
I just want to point out something that stuck out to me big time back in Oregon-Washington time was Commissioner Petit saying, when asked, like, he wasn't surprised that those two schools are now coming. Like, he wasn't surprised that this had come about the way it did. Just when it did surprised him. As in, that was all kind of part of maybe a long-term plan. But they weren't expecting to have to do this so soon. So a lot of people are looking at this, and, both sides of the argument are fair in terms of maybe this means that other schools coming to the Big Ten can't get full payouts. And then other people saying, no, it doesn't matter. Personally, if they weren't supposed to be coming in until after some other moves, is what that suggests to me, that would tell me why they would only give them a partial payment. Like, we have to save money aside for the schools that we were planning on getting before those.
Yeah, our take on it, and we're pretty. This is something that I will pound the table on. The plan was Oregon and Washington before they went east. That's why we at Peek Around the Corner kept saying it's going to be either a few months from now or 5 years from now, but Oregon and Washington is going to go in the Big Ten, and they want to do it before they go east. That was the talk when Kevin Warren was commissioner. When Petit, they did not want to take, they could not take Oregon and Washington until other things happened to the Pac-12. For the legal counsel was against it. So that's
Correct.
what was holding them up.
I think everyone thought that they were going to get a deal for like 3 to 5 years, right? And then you take them after that.
Yes. But they weren't going to be taking any. They were going to go west first again before they went east. That was said over and over again. More schools wanted, like everybody in the Midwest wanted to go west, except for Iowa. Your athletic director did not want to do it, but everybody else wanted to do it. They wanted more Western schools. They wanted Washington and Oregon. That's the schools they want. Fox wanted Oregon. So Michigan wanted Washington. So now they did come in as a discount, but the media market was so extremely tight at that point. Maybe it's loosening up. Maybe Florida State. Maybe your argument that Florida State would get the full slice. That may happen. It might. There is no pro rata clause. It isn't like it happens automatically.
No. But at the same time, if you're only going to get a partial payout and you're Florida State and you're looking at all that travel, I mean, that argument was made in chat, and that's a good argument. Like at a less than full pay.
Well,
it's different for Oregon and Washington because they don't have a whole lot of other choice. Florida State has another possible choice, and that's the SEC, and that's a whole lot of schools that are a whole lot closer.
Yes, and that means two things to me. One is that SEC door definitely is not closed on Florida State, like we've been saying here at Peek Around the Corner. And number two, that private equity part is probably not going to be just for if they decide to do it, if they have to do it. Not just about paying the exit fee, for being a bridge for the next few years until they get
that makes.
Yeah,
I think that's actually what it's for.
Yeah.
because I don't think that they can. I think that they said that they already had the money set aside for whatever it takes to get out, but then they're going to need money for all those operating costs, and that's
and the ESPN piece with the NBA. You know, they're in their exclusive window. They're just about out of it, or they're out of it today or something. Marchand put out another article saying that ESPN's still trying to... ESPN is going to pay a boatload for the NBA if they remain a part of it, which they really want to. They really have to be. Amazon's coming in, or they're trying to come in. I'm just saying...
That's today, isn't it?
It's I don't know, but it's we're in.
It was the last day.
We're getting to the end game, right? So if we're, we can wake up tomorrow morning and see this news of ESPN paying just an astronomical. ESPN might not. Again, we don't know. We're just speculating, but maybe everyone's going to have to come in as a discount. I tell you though, I don't think that Florida State, Clemson coming in as a discount, paying for $200 million, whatever, none of that is going to stop them from going into those conferences though. Right? They're not going to say no. They're going. They are going. They want to get to the highest ground possible. Now, the advantage for Florida State and Clemson is like what you said, Immaculate. There is two conferences out there, Big Ten and SEC. For Oregon and Washington, there wasn't two conferences.
Nope.
Right? You said it perfectly.
Yep, right.
There wasn't that. There was not a feeding frenzy for Washington and Oregon. Two incredible universities, incredibly valuable universities, but Big Ten was bidding against nobody. Florida State and Clemson, there is at least the perception of a bidding, like a feeding frenzy. There's the potential of a feeding frenzy. So they can play, that's why no doors are closed. Florida State has not closed the door on anybody. It would be foolish. Same with Clemson. I know a lot of people think the chances of Clemson going to the Big Ten is small. Yeah, probably, but it's there, right?
Yeah, there's a chance.
Go ahead.
No, I'm more on the fence that I have a hard time believing that the president would take both Florida State and Clemson as one pick.
So do I.
But I don't mean that to come across as like me saying that there's no chance of that happening. I mean, if the partners are like, look, all we can do right now is two big grabs. That's all we can do. We really cannot just kind of give you money for you to take an academic ad or whatever like we usually do. You usually take a big name plus one. USC, UCLA, Oregon, Washington. I mean, that's kind of the thing. I think they might be like, you need to do a Texas, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Which Texas also does the academic ad, so that one gives you a whole lot of leeway. But we'll see. I tend to think that the Big Ten would probably rather take Florida State and Miami if Miami is available. Or you might even find some presidents that would say Georgia Tech over Clemson, but you're also going to find some presidents that would say Clemson over Georgia Tech. It just depends on what they're valuing. Like if you're a Michigan, you might say Clemson. If you're Purdue, you might say Georgia Tech. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there. But I think that's what we're really watching playing out in public. Is it's just a long-term settlement. I know you had a question. I don't know if
I forgot what my question was.
We just did.
I think it was about the money. But we do have a Pete Knuckles from On3 about Dylan Edwards. I've heard a lot of chatter about Kansas State, Louisville, in Nebraska.
that kid doesn't want to come to Nebraska, Castro will eat his breakfast for him every day.
What was that?
I said he does not want to come to Nebraska because Castro will own that one.
Really?
Castro is. Oh, I hope Dylan goes to Nebraska.
Come on.
I hope he does. People are like, oh, you're not going to keep up with that Beezer. I'm like, watch Castro. Castro will take that kid out every single play.
Okay. All right.
Not worried about that one at all.
Yeah, Dylan Edwards with Kansas, how they spread it out there, and oh man, out of the backfield, and Kansas Jayhawks, that would work. Kansas State, man, Colorado's losing a good one there. Holy smokes.
Yeah, well, that was shocking. That's the shocking one because he was. But if you remember last year, he didn't get a lot of playing time. You know, he did get dinged up. Offensive line issues. I think a kid like that, he needs to be at a team where they have a good line. So it actually makes sense at Nebraska. It would make sense at Iowa, but I think they've got their eyes on a different speedster.
I don't know. Nebraska has an old offensive line, but they haven't been good. They haven't been good though. So we'll see. But
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. That I mean, it's kind of odd that he after. It almost seems personal if he goes to Nebraska, though. I mean, there's a lot of hate there right now between Colorado and Nebraska. So
yeah.
When you look at moves like that seems a little personal.
Yeah.
Anyways, man, I'm gonna let you go. Get someone else on here. Appreciate it, and see how this goes.
You got it. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Hot Guy. Immaculate. Great call. Great call. Yeah, Dylan Edwards, man.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, Ryan. Appreciate it. What's up, sir?
I'm struggling right now to care about college football because you've got the NHL playoffs going on. I know you're a Minnesota guy, you know, a hockey guy. I know you understand. So, you know, I hope you appreciate.
Well, I don't here. Because the Wild are not in the playoffs this year. But the Minnesota Timberwolves is in the playoffs. Anthony Edwards tonight, Game 2, yes. Phoenix Suns.
He is some player to watch. I'll say that.
Yeah. Who are you rooting for in the NHL?
Oh, man, you know, well, unfortunately, they're not going to go far, but, you know, I'm in D.C. here, you know, a Caps fan. A few years ago, I had season tickets, but you know, we don't, you know, we're used to being disappointed. The only fan base that gets disappointed more than we do is probably the Maple Leafs.
Yeah. What fan are you of?
The Capitals, because I live in D.C.
Oh, the Capitals, yes. You guys are disappointed.
You know, yeah, but, you know, at least we got that. I think that title back in 2018 will hold us over for a little bit.
Look, I don't mean to supersede you, but this is the state of hockey. And do you know how many Stanley Cups the Minnesota North Stars and the Minnesota Wild have won in combination?
Well, let's give it's zero. The North Stars. Were the ones that did the lifting there, Greg. But I mean, that's what I love about Minnesota. It's a great hockey state, and you know, I'm excited about my original one of the states I lived in or grew up in, Utah. I'm glad to see that they're getting an NHL team. That's exciting to me too. Sorry, we'll get the football in a second, but they got 27,000 people put down deposits for season tickets.
Yeah, and that's something. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that state really has the potential to be a good hockey state, and it's about time. Yeah. But anyway, you know, you probably saw the Ross Dellinger article on the CFP in 2022.
Yeah, we went through it. We went through it on the last show. Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I just had to shake my head. You know, last year I said I thought Jim Phillips was an idiot. Now I know he's an idiot. I mean, you know, it's like Kevin Warren, George Kliakoff, and Jim Phillips are like the Three Stooges here, Greg. I mean, It's like, I mean, and it's just kind of amazing to me because, you know, this was in 2022, so this was after Texas and Oklahoma leaving.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating to me because, you know, those leagues, you know, had they all agreed to something, we probably are looking at basically 5 leagues still.
Yeah.
I don't think the financials change, you know. So I mean, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, what happened was, and that article did not talk about it. Yeah, there was an alliance, all this stuff. It was after Texas and Oklahoma left. But you know what happened that they didn't know what happened at the time is USC called the Big Ten.
Yep.
When we were fortunate enough to break that story, I got dragged through the muds, over the coals. 99% of where that's, you know, when people figured out I was saying it, I just got crushed by everybody because everyone thought this alliance, it's not going to happen. USC's too far away and everything, but we had a lot of information. That's exactly what was happening. So Kevin Warren was under so much pressure. Part of the reason why they gave me this, certain people gave me the story, because he was in this alliance. We weren't going to backstab the Pac-12, but the pressure was like, no, Kevin, you got to do it. Fox Sports. And then Kevin Warren became this expansionist overnight. He said, okay, yeah, let's take USC, UCLA, California, Stanford. Then he just went crazy.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
then Fox got upset with them. But yeah, at the time, the alliance, everyone thought it was good, was ready to, you know, there wasn't going to be anything happening. But when USC called, it changed again everything. Just like when Texas and Oklahoma called Sankey, when USC called Kevin Warren, it's just everything changed. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and you know, and that, you know, it seems to me like, you know, the entire time, you know, Kevin Warren just seemed to be in over his head on what he was doing.
Yeah.
That's the general perception that I got. I mean, it seemed to me like it doesn't surprise me they brought you in, Greg, because you know, I think he just kind of really didn't have a clue of what was going on, or, you know, I get the feeling that Kevin Warren just struggled with listening. And, you know, that's something he, you know, whether it was the COVID fiasco or anything, I think Kevin Warren just didn't do a very good job at listening to stakeholders. And I think that was probably why, as you mentioned, he was one of the biggest obstacles to expansion. Mm-hmm. But anyway, going to the ACC, I've mentioned this before. Until that option gets exercised, the value of the granted rights right now after 2026 is 0. And, you know, depending on what year either school leaves the ACC. So if a settlement happens and they play the 24 season, we're talking about the 25-26 year. You know, I think what it's really going to come down to is the settlement. It really doesn't matter what the membership agreement says about exit fees. It doesn't really matter. A judge is free to dispose and get rid of those. And you can have things that are punitive in contracts, but generally when in remedy laws, the judge doesn't have to follow that. And generally the rule of thumb is in most remedies is, you know, the judge, it's usually whatever makes the injured party whole. And I would disagree. There's not going to be a big pot of exit fee money, Greg. That's not how this is going to work. There's a reason why ESPN hasn't exercised the option, and I'm just going to put call my marker right now.
Got it.
Whatever ends up getting settled is going to be the number of schools that are left behind. Basically, it's going to be the value that they would have gotten less the value that they will get moving forward after the revaluation. That will be the settlement.
I think that's what Phillips would like. Yes.
But the thing is I'm just talking about 2 years, Greg. Because the primary driver after that you can't really value that. And the question is if you have multiple defections, that value actually goes down. Because at the end of the day, let's say you have 6 that go to the SEC and the Big Ten. That's great. And you got 4 that go to the Big 12. Well, the Big 12 schools, the ones that go to the Big 12, they're not going to get anything because the thing is they're going to be in the same position they were anyway. And I don't think they're going to be awarded anything. And I think whoever's left, maybe sans California, Stanford, and SMU, I think Wake Forest and Syracuse and Boston College or Pitt or whoever's left is probably going to be made whole for those next 2 years, basically what they would have gotten. And maybe they each get, maybe they each get the difference between, let's just say that the distributions for the ACC in 26 and 25 as projected are like $52 million each. Basically, I think the settlement will be for each school that's left will probably get that amount less what they're going to get moving forward into the new system for those 2 years. And whoever is gone will probably have to chip in to some degree to fill that. But that's just where I see this, and I think ESPN is not going to exercise this option because I think they're honestly waiting to see how the chips fall. They're going to see if they can leverage it. I know that there's bad blood between FSU and Clemson. I mean, between FSU and ESPN. But I mean, maybe ESPN. They'll try indirectly to try to encourage them towards the SEC. I don't know. Maybe they'll do something to kind of grease the skids or make things easier. But I think there's a possibility of certainly some schools. I know Immaculate's floated the idea of some of the private schools going off and doing their own thing. I think that in a vacuum that makes sense, but I think in practice that's a little bit more difficult because the thing is for that to happen, you need a whole bunch of schools to get on the same page at the same time, and I think timing is the biggest issue. And I don't think Miami or Duke, contrary, with all due respect to Immaculate, I don't think those two really live or die by what Notre Dame says. I don't think they really care. They'd be nice to be associated with it, but I don't think Miami's turning down a Big Ten invite to stick with Notre Dame in some small, insignificant conference. And I don't think that Duke is turning down an SEC invite if they somehow get it. That's just, I mean that with all respect, because I think, these schools are going to do Duke and Carolina, and I think that's the one thing. And I pointed this out before, Greg. I know that people want to say that NC State and UNC are tied together, but
I don't think anyone's saying they're tied together.
Let me finish my point. I hear that's thrown out, but the thing is I think that's just a negotiating leverage point, because at the end of the day, an impaired ACC without Clemson or FSU, keeping NC State and North Carolina in a conference like that is going to have an impact on the value of that. And there's no guarantee on this settlement because nobody knows what's going to happen legally with the grant of rights. I mean, the whole thing could be tossed out. It could be who knows. And keep those two together. An impaired ACC is more financial damage than having one go to the SEC/Big Ten versus one go to the Big 12. And I think at the end of the day, those board of governors have a fiduciary duty. And I mean, and keep in mind, even though Duke is a private school, Duke grads are on that board of governors. And, if Duke is somehow made whole, that might be enough to sway some votes to let North Carolina part from NC State. So I think there's a lot going there. I know there's a lot of crazy things. This is my crazy idea. I know that there's the crazy idea. Well, I'm on board with the Georgia Tech Big Ten thing. I know that's crazy. That's crazy talking. You haven't heard anything about it. my other crazy talk is Duke to the SEC. That's my crazy talk. Allow it for me, people. Allow me one crazy thing.
Yeah, that's a couple crazy things. I'm gonna have to cut you off at 2.
No, that's okay. I'll give up on the Big Ten. I'll give up on the Georgia Tech to the Big Ten one. But I think it'll be kind of it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out politically. But I think that the fact that ESPN hasn't exercised that option is telling, because I think ESPN's waiting to see what materializes. If there is a collection of schools left that they can take that in the ACC network and sell it off to Apple, ESPN will do that. If there's a way that it can park some of those properties that it wants if it can still keep most of those properties and just put some in the SEC and some in the Big 12 and cut the rest loose and let the ACC, well-to-do leaving schools kind of, make those guys whole. ESPN will do that, but I think ESPN right now is just waiting to see what happens, and they'll make their decision. But that's all I've got. So great show, Greg. Take care, and have a great day, everyone.
Appreciate it, sir. Great call once again.
No problem. Take care. Bye.
Great call once again. Make sure, if you are new to the channel or if you haven't done so, please subscribe. Hit the subscribe button and have your notifications turned on, because we can come on live at any time. If there's breaking news tonight, we're going to be coming on live. That's what we do. We go where the story goes here at College Football's Peek Around the Corner. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you have your notifications turned on. Follow us on X at Flug Empire. You can see it at the bottom of your screen on the ticker. It makes it easy. We're gonna get we on X. We usually give you a little bit of a heads up on what we're planning on do for the day. So subscribe, have your notifications turned on, and smash that like button if you like our content. If you want to become a member of College Football's Peek Around the Corner, be an early peek cloak and dagger member, go to the link provided in the description box. Hit the link, then hit the join button, and become a member of the Rebel Outpost College Football YouTube channel. Now, it isn't that North Carolina and North Carolina State are tied together, but I would argue that North Carolina and North Carolina State should not be compared to UCLA and California Berkeley. North Carolina and North Carolina State should not be compared to, let's say, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, or other examples out there. They have been proactive. The Board of Governors have taken over the power. They're going to have to look at the interest of North Carolina State, and I don't care if there's Duke alumnus on there. I don't care if there's Wake Forest alum. They have to look out. It's their job. There's 17 universities, I think 13 of them with athletic departments that they have to look out for. And that doesn't mean that North Carolina State's automatically going into the Big Ten of the SEC. But their interests are going to be looked out after. There's too much North Carolina State political power in the Board of Governors. There's too much North Carolina State political power in the state legislature. There is too much chatter behind the curtain for there just to be, it doesn't matter, North Carolina State, nothing. North Carolina State at some point is going to play a part in this drama. They're not tied together, but they're not tied together. I don't know what the phrase I should be using for them. North Carolina, North Carolina's interests are going to be looked out after as much as possibly can happen in whatever plays out. But anyways, I think we're going to close this live show up. We've been on the air for 2 hours and 30 minutes. I want to thank everybody. Look, we could come on live again later tonight. There's stuff percolating. I know I keep saying that, but there is. There is, and I'm looking out for them. So keep your head on a swivel. We may come on live again later tonight. We may not. Regardless, we're going to be coming on live tomorrow. So again, hit the subscribe button. Get your notifications turned on to our channel. Smash the like button if you liked our content. I want to thank everybody for your incredible generosity. Thank you so very much. All of you who've donated to the show during this live show, thank you so very much. I'm very much humbled. I'm also humbled by the incredible comments and the activity in the chat room talking about everything in college football. And of course, the phone calls, the PATC community, there's no better phone callers in all the college football. Most college football YouTube channels don't have a call-in. And I don't quite understand why that is. But anyways, great phone calls, great chats. Thank you for sharing your time with me. As today, I turn the fat guy from Minnesota. Today I turn 56 years old as I start my 57th trip around the sun. Thank you all for joining me. Again, keep your head on a swivel. It's not just a tease. There are things percolating. Things are bubbling up. The chatter is growing loud behind the curtain. I'm telling you, I'm giving you the straight shoot on this. So, anyways, might see you again later tonight, definitely tomorrow. Until next time, all of us at PATC, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.